Hey everybody, Charlie Bathgate, the CEO of Sang Lucci and WallStreetJesus.com here, just to give you a quick introduction to the interview that you're about to watch. So this is between Peter McEwen and Cady, who are two of our resident experts on trading psychology, and their interview subject, Wall Street Jesus. This is a great interview. They talk about a number of different topics, including can you even really teach people how to trade? Why is the trade that feels the worst often the most profitable trade to put on? How do you manage your adrenaline junkie tendencies when you're trading? And all sorts of other different questions that I'm sure you will want to hear their answers to. If you want to learn more from these guys, especially from Peter and Chris, we invite you to check out our new trading psychology course, which is called Clear Mind Trading. We've gotten a lot of requests over the years for a course dedicated to trading psychology, and we have finally created one. We're very proud of it. So you can learn more about that at sanglucci.com/clear-mind, or just click on the link in the description of this video. Okay, enjoy.
Okay, hey everybody, I'm Cady. I'm here with Peter McEwen and Wall Street Jesus. We're talking about if it's possible to learn how to trade. And Jay, what do you think? Is it even possible? Do you think you could? I mean, there are some people that just can't do it, period, right? Like I tried to learn how to ride a unicycle, ain't no way, right? And there's just
and you know what it is. Obviously, that has to be the case because I mean, you're rewarded if you learn how to trade and do the right things. You get rewarded in this game, and if everybody can do it, obviously the reward wouldn't be worth it, right? That's
right,
usually
yeah.
how life works.
Right. I mean, and if someone's like, hey, I want to learn to play the piano, and they're like, okay, well, it's going to take you a while. You actually have to learn music theory and then actually learn how to hit the keys and then actually practice.
And let's be honest, learning how to do something and doing it well, I mean, those are two very different things, right?
Right.
You can learn how to do something. It may take a while. You could eventually learn it, but doing it well, sometimes you have no control over those things, right? I'm a big believer that not everybody can do everything.
Yeah, right. I want to live in Tahiti. However, I'm currently in Manhattan. People want to learn how to trade.
I want to be able to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball. I wouldn't be able to see it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's the way it goes. So I think everybody can learn it. Like you said, it probably take longer for some. Some will come easier. Not that it will determine whether you're successful or not if you get it right away or not. So I think you're capable of learning how to trade, but learning to do the things on a day-to-day basis and on a week-to-week and a year-to-year basis to find success, that's extremely difficult. And I think you would agree that's something we work on still
all the time, right? It's like you got to rewire your brain. And essentially, Peter, isn't that like making sure you have the right constructs in place in how you think about this?
Well, I was thinking about Ted Williams. He purportedly could see the stitches on the baseball.
Is that nuts?
Right when he was being served a 100-mile-an-hour pitch or whatever it was, even if it was above 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And he was a fighter pilot. He had all these he was wired to be excellent in the fields that he was excellent. And I think something that modern science is examining is how much of that is born into us and how much of that is something we can cultivate through conscious interaction with habitual behavior, cognitive faculty, and intent, basically desire and intention. And what science is finding, and also what meditation traditions have suggested over the years, is that you can change your brain and you can improve your trading, you can improve your ability to hit a 100-mile fastball. There's always going to be a bigger fish, but it might be worth looking at for all of us to figure out what are those habits in trading that will facilitate a better experience trading, and also just making a little money there as
Peter, you're missing the one key phrase. It's hard work.
It's hard work. Yeah. Well, basically, you're doing the counterintuitive thing almost when you're trading. I think constantly doing the counterintuitive thing. It's like our animal mind wants to do something specific, but we have to resist that And through that resistance training in the mind, that's where we rewire the brain to do like the adult capacity thing, impulse control, delayed gratification, wait for the retracement,
Jay,
reality-based thinking. That stuff's hard to do. We're not trained in our culture to do that stuff.
right. Jay and I have heard a cliche for the years, right? The obvious trade is obviously wrong, right, Jay?
Yep, yep, and right when you put on a trade, when it feels good to put on a trade, you're usually wrong, right? It's the trades that come difficult to put on that usually are your big winners, right? Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Like when all the time when I, let's say, when I start a position, when I buy something and I feel it feels too easy, like I feel too good about it, usually, I know deep down inside, all right, I better be ready to stop myself out on this one because it just feels too easy. But the ones, I give you an example, like into the COVID lows, okay, I had to literally put blinkers on to look at the screen and force myself to do some buying while everybody in New York City was walking around like zombies. You understand? Because I really didn't see, I just didn't see it. I didn't see the bullish case in getting long into a global economic shutdown. Like I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I knew from my experience and based on the things you're talking about, things I've learned in sentiment positioning, that the likelihood is it's going to pan out well if I do get myself to do those things.
Isn't that interesting how it's like, if you can't find anybody else who wants to have the position, you should probably have it.
Yeah, right? Isn't that the case?
Yeah.
Now, and everybody, I get the rebuttal when I try to tell some of the younger traders that I get the rebuttal, well, all the time. And I say, no, you're missing the point. It doesn't need to be all the time. You understand? And we know for sure it's more than not, right? I would say maybe 80, 90% of the time, easy. And if you're managing your risk properly, right? If you manage your bankroll properly, those 80% of those winners are going to be huge winners because nobody's involved. You understand? So
huge monster. It's and to Peter's point about delaying gratification, Peter, how is it that you can sit with a winner? Right, we're so good at getting out of losers. That's why we're still professional traders. We can get the hell out. But I mean, sitting with winners
that's one of the things I'm awful at, and I still to this day I admit I'm awful at, and it's something I've had to work on. I would say honestly, for the past 8 years solely, that's been my biggest issue is holding on to winners.
There's our New Year's resolution, Jay, right there. Let's try and sit with winners.
It's every year it's a New Year's resolution, but I have trouble with it. But Chris, this goes back to, and you were, I think, on the webinar as well, Pete, when we took, and goes back to what you're referring to, Pete. And that's why, like you're saying, science, you can learn certain things. I see, for me, it's hard for me to get me to believe that, because the conversation we had the last time, Chris, about being wired a certain way, right?
Yeah.
There's no coincidence that the top traders out there, okay, I'm talking about the ones that it comes natural to, okay, they're wired differently than I am. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not ashamed to admit that. When I'm shitting my bloomers, excuse my French, they're stepping in and ready to buy with 5 hands, right? Yep. They're excited about getting one. Like, I can pretend like I feel good about buying in that spot, but it really, no matter what I do, it does not feel good.
But having the radar, the ultra sensitive antenna that we supposedly have as traders, and then trying to dumb that down to sit with a winner, or like these guys you talk about that are so good who have ice in their veins.
Ice in their veins, exactly. That's the best way to say it. They have ice in their veins. And going back quickly to Pete's point, what I think is, and I think it's a big part of this game. You asked me, like, what's the most important aspect as far as learning in this game? I think it's the ability to find the things, to learn the things that you're most comfortable with. You know what I mean? The things that you can do, that you can get yourself to do, and isolating those spots to take advantage of them.
How
Yeah.
would you right? How do you define? You just do more of it's like if you're a fastball hitter, just hit fastballs.
Right.
Once
So that's what I'm saying. If I can't hit a curveball for the life of me, and I can practice and practice and practice, I make it a little better at it, but I still can't hit the fucking curveball. You know what I
right,
mean?
just go around the world crushing fastballs and
Right.
you're
I
good.
gotta sit, I gotta work the count and wait for that pitcher to make a mistake on a fastball, because that's the only way I'm gonna get the barrel of the bat on the ball. You know?
Pete, hey Peter, how would you get people? How can you help people define who they are? Start with who they're not. If you know you're not a curveball hitter.
Well, you should utilize methods to inoculate yourself from the stress at your capacity. Like basically your body is always going to tell you when there's a threat. And so you have to have the clarity of mind to make adult decisions despite what you're seeing on the screen or what you're seeing in the market or whatever noise is on Twitter. And so that's something I can't teach people to be a great trader. I don't know anyone who maybe could,
Nah.
but we can teach people how to have a good experience when they're trading, which is something is pretty uncommon. Like I think a lot of people trade out of an addictive tendency because they get used to the rush of the dopamine fulfillment when something goes right, and then there's chasing and disappointment, more chasing, and then once in a while you get the fulfillment of the dopamine. So basically you get addicted to this cycle of stress, adrenaline, cortisol uptake, and it becomes a circular cycle. And then there's exogenous dependencies you build, whether it's on alcohol or screen time, whatever it is. So there's two things going on that interest me greatly. There's the stress addiction that I think some traders have.
Yep.
And there's maybe the relief we can teach to have like clarity of mind when you are really stressed. And then you can make conscious decisions instead of habitual or compulsive decisions. That's the area I think maybe we can actually influence.
So in other words, if I understand you correctly, basically you're trying to get them to block out the noise that gets their senses firing, right? That usually gets them stressed out or emotionally wound up, to figure out a way to block that out so they can see clearly, in a sense, and figure out what to do.
Right.
Hey, time out, 2 seconds, Jay. He's talking about the adrenaline, the physical adrenaline that runs through people's bodies, and how that's distorting their ability to think clearly.
Right.
So as do we as traders ever get rid of the adrenaline, or we're so used to it that we eventually see past its effect, and we can
the latter.
Right, and then so we can achieve a cool analytical state of mind in the face of large, act through it. We can, in a sense, act through the adrenaline, right? The surf comes up, we know the adrenaline's there, but we still have the ability to have a clear mind and analytical perspective.
Exactly. I'll give you an example. Go ahead, Pete. Go ahead.
No, well, you have two things happening. You have your raw experience, which is very disturbing when trading or doing a lot of things, probably playing baseball professionally too. And then there's distraction, the narrative surrounding what's actually happening in the body. And when the body is giving you signals that your life is on the line, you have to make the adult decision not to be influenced by what your body is always telling you. And it may not necessarily be an analytical decision, because markets, I don't know if are rational enough to warrant an analytic decision, but you can indulge risk management when appropriate, but not out of the field of my life is on the line. If I don't get out of this position right now, I'm gonna like shit my bloomers. to use Jay's like very visual metaphor. But go ahead, Jay.
I got a quick question for you, Jay. Are you addicted to adrenaline anymore?
Oh yeah, I find different outlets to fulfill my addiction. You understand? Like,
okay, but not in trading, right? Like there's
right. I think we were talking about this on the last time I spoke with you, that I'll bet the ball games, I'll go to the racetrack, and knowingly I'll piss my money away, and it won't bother me because I know that's my out to get those juices flowing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And in regards to hopefully it helps with, as far as this game is concerned, I know I can be a degenerate there, and here I want to be different. You understand? So I'm kind of separating the two, if that makes any sense.
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Compartmentalizing it. I mean,
So I'll give you a point, and I want you guys to tell me if this is something kind of what you're explaining here, okay? Because this is something I worked over, especially early on in my career, and then I never looked at it in the way until you guys, the way you discuss things, but you get me thinking, you get the noodle working. But as you guys know, I'm big. I'm fascinated by positioning and sentiment in the market, right? I'm always keeping tabs, and the reason, even when there's nothing off sides, okay, as far as positioning sentiment, it could be just neutral, nothing going on. It's almost like I wanted to make it a habit to continuously look and pay attention to see what's going on. Now, why would you say that? I get the question. Why are you paying attention to this when there's nothing going on? And the reason is, by building that habit, it gets me COVID lows, an example I was referring to earlier. In those times, because it becomes a habit, I continuously look towards that stuff instead of getting all wound up in the noise that Pete was referring to. You understand? So the COVID lows, instead of the negative headlines, instead of CNBC scaring the living daylights out of you every 3 seconds, okay? Instead of the things crashing on your screen nonstop, it's like a timeout. I'm looking at sentiment positioning, and I'm seeing everybody feeling the same way I am, and it gets me to see things a little bit clearer. You understand? Because now I know I'm not doing the right thing by thinking like that, by feeling that. Does that make sense? Or
Totally.
yeah, it makes sense. How much are you weighting feelings versus analytical process, Jay?
well, it's interesting that you asked that before. Like, the feelings are still there. You know what I mean? It's not like the feelings ever go away from me. They're there, but I put things around me, kind of like what Pete was saying, to almost zap my brain out of just continuously feeling those feelings and paying attention to something that should make me feel something different or see things differently. You understand? So I'm still physically feeling those feelings, right? When the market's crashing, I still get that feeling like, oh shit, here we go. Things are blowing up. But
the labeling of the emotional process is what you're talking about. You're looking for an alternative label.
Right, exactly, to almost like snap me out of it and
Right.
be like, okay, this is what I should be focusing on.
Right. That's
a
a very
here, not getting all wound up in the negative headlines in the market crash.
right. Super advanced practice to be able to label to look to label an emotion a different way in a trading environment filled with stress.
Exactly.
Or to like, to render the emotion as an object in the field of your experience. You want to have experience. You don't want to be your experience. To be your experience has turned you basically into a monkey, as the mind,
an animal.
Yeah, the mind has a negativity bias. It's looking for threats, and then it creates a narrative to support its bias. And so when I earlier suggested it's probably constructive for traders or other high stress professions to examine what they think is an intuitive decision, because a lot of people come to meditation because they feel as though they're having this really thick, dense mental experience, and they want a little more clarity, open-mindedness. And so we want to look at, well, if you're making intuitive judgments all the time and that's yielding more suffering, maybe it's time to have a look and label those behaviors and habits and do the counterintuitive thing, which then creates stress. And the more you create stress in your life in a conscious, controlled way, the more you inoculate yourself from being at its mercy. and just acting unconsciously, and then you become acclimated to it, and then your neurological being becomes acclimated to it, and so you kind of like reset dopamine uptake. And then when you do really get a reward, it's a true reward. It's not a reward that, oh God, I'm so glad I got out of that losing position. It might be a reward of something to the effect of like, I'm glad I made it through that shakeout I added, and now I'm back into a profit realm, and now I have a real reward.
Peter,
I got, go ahead.
Peter, have you heard the word scarification that Paul Hornblower talks about?
No, I haven't, but that's a much more succinct. I like that.
Yeah, just being able to have the thick skin, because we know we're going to be early, or we know it's going to be stressful. So you have to have the thick skin to survive either being early or having the price move against you before you're right.
Yep. Yep.
Isn't that a great term? That's Paul's
Love it.
term, scarification.
I would know what I wanted to mention, because it's funny, and I know that you guys are obviously going to teach this and touch on it in the course, but it's always the one side that a lot of traders in this game talk about. You see, our discussion now has been all based on negative feelings and buying when we shouldn't. I mean, buying when we don't feel like we should be buying. A bit just as bad as an issue, okay, mentally and emotionally for new traders especially, is the opposite side of that. Okay, and that's what we just went through prior to this bear market, when everything is going up, right? And you know there's a bubble, and you just can't, the FOMO, right? You can't be out of it because you need to be a part of it, right? You want to feel a part of things. You can't watch everybody make money around you and you not partake in it. And what happens? It gets you to do the wrong things just to be involved and enjoy in that happiness that you think is happiness. And then the market pulls and you're all together, you're crying misery, right?
Right. The desire to join the party.
Yeah. And don't you think I mean, what would you think, honestly, in your opinion? Is there one side worse than the other in this game, or especially for newer traders, or, I mean, is it even between the two?
Yeah, Peter, I would suggest Peter would say it would come to your previous predisposition.
Good call, right? Maybe, right.
Right.
Maybe
Some people are. Go ahead.
I think there's depressive personalities and
Right.
and people who are prone to euphoria or hedonistic personality.
Perma bears and perma bulls, I mean.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, bartenders talk about gin drinkers being nasty people.
That's funny. Holy cow. Yeah, see, every time I have a conversation with you guys, I won't be able to sleep tonight. I'm telling you, you get the noodle working crazy. So yeah, it depends on right? It depends on how you're wired.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's the part of the game that also interests me, is that self-discipline. It's not always about catching every move, right? It's about having a habitual discipline that you can rely on. Like you were saying, hey, I'm a slugger. I swing for the fences. That's what I'm paid to do. And then other people are just paid to get on base.
Right.
Myself trading, I'm much more successful getting on base, catching a walk, like selling some premium. Right. I'm not a slugger. I don't trade big, but that's what I'm comfortable with. But it would be healthy for a trader like me to have some wiring also, or some capacity to deal with the stress of trading big once in a while, and putting in proper controls, because you want to expand your ability to withstand existential intensity without pooping your bloomers.
Yeah, but Peter, as Clint Eastwood says, a man's got to know his limits.
Yeah, you should always trade. I mean, you don't want to always trade at your edge, but you should be able to find your edge. I think that's true in relationships, in professional life, your trading. And so I think a lot of the axioms you and I will be sharing aren't limited to trading. You could apply these axioms to athletics, to, I teach at a university, to like normative educational environments. Being in an argument with a partner can be immensely triggering, and that can lead to all day drinking and coffee consumption or something,
Arguing with your mother your whole life means that you argue with the market.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there are
Right.
unconscious patterns that we could ferret out.
Right. The great Irish sins, pride and privacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Jay, I'd like to hear more about what areas you think traders, you come into contact with a lot of people new to the market. What areas do you feel as though traders could use some work, or where do they have resistance to applying new ways of trading and learning?
You're talking to me, right, Pete?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff you guys just touched on, and that's why you're touching on it. Obviously, it's the more important stuff. Patience is huge, right? I mean, it's
Huge.
huge. Like
Huge.
like you just stated, Pete. I'm convinced if you can't find the discipline and the ability to hang around and wait for your pitch, right? You're going to go down swinging every time in this game, right? It's only like if you can't improve on that, right? You have to nail that down, that aspect of the game, right? You have to nail down the discipline and the patience aspect of the game, because if you continuously get out and, like you were saying, get off of your edge, if you continuously look to do that because your edge is not around, obviously it's going to cost you money. So I think that's probably right up there at the top of the list. So many traders, again, you get into, like we just had, bull market, they make money. All of a sudden, the Fed stops printing money. It's a bear market. Now they're sitting around scratching their head. They don't know what to do. They start doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and boom, they're done, right? And that's
Yeah.
why you see this cleansing, a bear market come around, and you see new faces by the time the new bull enters the picture, because it's hard to withstand. So the patience and discipline are right up there.
Jay, there's a monster mindset change that we have embodied over all the years that the young 20-somethings have no clue on
No
what,
clue.
no clue.
Listen, it's not their fault. They haven't been through it.
Right.
But
You can't work harder to trade better.
no, that's what
You
I think.
can't,
That's what they
right?
don't understand. You understand? They think they think they're doing something wrong, and if they start doing different things, it'll change. But like you're saying, it's just a different game right now.
You have to work righter. You can't work
Right,
harder.
right.
Right? Isn't that so
Exactly.
weird? It's like I see all these young, in my case, I've worked in American Express. There's many women and they're very, type A, go-getter. I'm in the American Express Tower for people who are watching, and it has most female executives of any Fortune 500 company. And you see them right there in charge. They're driven. They're going to fight their way up the corporate ladder. And that does not work in trading. You can't fight up the mark. You can't fight up the corporate market ladder.
No.
It's
And
like you have to be in step with a process, which is the exact opposite of someone who's driven type A, lawyer type.
Well,
yeah,
I think to Jay's point, there are two styles of trading we see explicitly in the market: bearish, bullish, and people tend to be in an extreme, especially in the eye of the media. And so to me, that kind of tells me that they have an unconscious bias that if they ignore their connection or interpersonal connection to those around them, and they steamroll their way through life, that they're going to find specific emotional or objective troubles.
Hey, wait, time out. Taleb wrote a book about Peace and Fooled by Randomness, about how people who have predispositions that happen to be aligned with a macro scenario in the markets that just randomly align.
Right.
And they confuse that with ability when they're just they're just randomly aligned with the macro situation by pure coincidence.
wow.
I mean, I think when we're trading, we're acting out of confidence, out of the ground of not knowing. Like that is the down, but we're doing that all day long. We just have a bunch of systems around us, like running water, gravity, that kind of keep it within control. But in a marketplace, a lot of those controls are thrown out of the window. And no matter what you're doing, you're throwing your position in the market, and you're going to do your best to manage it.
Right.
And then having some sense of your unconscious bias are you going to try and steamroll the market? Or are you going to try to be a doormat to the market? You know, those are two neurotic styles that I see at play. And those, again, have been habitually entrained and wired into a person's outlook, and that affects their biases. And
Could you say that's their karma?
you could say it's a result of karma, if you want to use that word. But
Right. I know you don't like it.
no, I mean, it's a fine word. To me, it's just, you're enmeshed and you're engrossed in a cyclical existence. And your biases are always going to be proven out by your experience. That's like the negative side of karma.
Right.
So I guess if we want to use the word karma, what we're trying to do is institute new habits and a feeling of progress. How do we know if we need to set a benchmark for progress? So then we, at the outset of our trading school, we'll outline the view.
Can we go ask Jay when we tried to change our behaviors over the years, have you noticed that it took time?
What do you mean? It takes,
Like if I say I want to stop sliding my stop, right? Or
Yeah.
canceling my stops, right? And then it takes years of
yeah. It's not gonna happen immediately. Hell no.
right.
You
It's
know?
like learning to play the piano, any skill or in this case, correcting an already ingrained bad habit.
Yeah, especially right. Some
And
maybe
remember how we were talking about trading is always like doing the opposite of what you would normally assume to be the natural response.
Well, that's honestly, everybody's different because I truly believe George Soros or Stanley Druckenmiller, like they are wired differently than I am. You understand? When you put them, I don't think even maybe it's something they worked on over their career. I don't know them personally, but if you put them in specific situations and you put myself in that same situation, I'm going to have different feelings no matter what I've learned over the years. Does that make sense? You understand?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're gonna be calm, cool, and collective, and they almost like thrive to be in that situation where I'm looking almost to distract myself from feeling what I'm feeling. So I can see clearly. You understand?
I mean, it's a crutch, it works.
But listen, I can, sit here, talk with you guys and bullshit like, oh yeah, trading's in my blood, it comes natural. I'm being honest with you guys. And
Yeah.
everybody I know, a lot of people I know, even that have been successful in this game, are very similar, or more similar to me than a Soros or a Druckenmiller. You understand? Like, we're just wired differently, and we have to continuously work on, like you said, changing how we feel in those situations. It's not going to come natural. You understand? For them, it comes natural. For us, it's something that's going to take work.
Right. And as Peter was saying, right, it's going to take everybody who's trying. It's not uncommon for it to be a process rather than a switch that's flipped.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of new traders, a lot of young traders, they think they're just going to come into the game and be the next Paul Tudor Jones, right? They put the Lamborghini pictures on their desk, and you know what I mean? And I get it. I was the same way, right? I was the same way early on.
Right.
But,
I had a 911. I got it. Yeah.
So we understand, but you're going to get to those crossroads at some point in your career where you're gonna have to look yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself and say, listen, I'm not Jesse Livermore. You understand? I can't be that. I have to work at getting better at certain things that comes natural to a guy like Paul Tudor Jones. You understand?
Uh-huh.
You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to learn these things and work on these things. Otherwise, this market will knock that chip right off your shoulders so quick. You won't know what hit you.
Hey, Peter, like Jay and I have always been schooled on positive cash flow, small, steady growth in our positive cash flow as instilling confidence in the psychological process of affecting positive change that is not necessarily intuitive to the human experience, but is required in trading. Are you a school of that sort of, or is it a light bulb moment? Is it a small steps to get to the place, or do you think it's a light bulb moment?
Well, the meditation point of view is that we're naturally healthy and good, right? We're naturally fulfilled. Anything else is a addition. And so we're not trying to add anything to our experience. We're actually trying to remove our absorption in personal drama and compulsion. And the biggest one is the fantasy of organizing experience around avoiding negative experience. That is one of the number one reasons why I think people suffer. So I think in the work we're doing, we're not trying to make people happy or increase happiness. We're trying to reduce misery when you're trading.
So
And
clean your room.
I think a lot of the stuff we'll be doing when we're helping the traders create their own personal trading principles, and they're, like a panic checklist or whatever it is cleaning their room. That's one level we operate. That's the biological level. And then we also operate at an adult emotional level.
Is there an ethical level too?
Yeah, that would be the adult level of adult psychological capacities, where we know how to work within power hierarchies and get what we want. And so when we're trading in the market's got all the power. The participants have more power than we have. So we need to learn how to operate within that hierarchy without getting stomped. And so that, like, to Jay's point, that takes like,
Nice technical term. Stop.
it's a craft. That's a craft, This is a lifestyle. This is not something. It's okay if you do it as a hobby, but I'm going to recommend that people who are in our class, that they take some responsibility and turn it into some lifestyle samurai shit to really change their life and orient it around being a better trader and working with their vulnerabilities.
Right, in a sense, right? Like the goal of the Tibetans monks when they're studying is to be in step with the situation out in the world, to be seamlessly in step with reality. And essentially, we're trying to do the same thing here.
Well, we already are. The thing humans are good at is ignoring what's happening. And so we want people to consciously participate in the trade, whether it's good or bad. Right?
Yeah, right. The temptation when it's bad is to ignore it.
It's to ignore it, let it get worse, or abandon ourselves emotionally and go have a beer or like do something stupid to get out of those feelings that we're having. And that it depends where you're at in your trading career. Some people can get away with it, and a lot of us who are newer to it, it's not possible to really dissociate when you're trading.
Yeah, and to your point, what you guys are talking about now, I think that you wanted me to add another issue to the list would be that I find, and especially now, even more so with social media, you can notice it more, is the look to find certainty, right? You see so many of these newer traders that they jump from guru to method to style to a different style, just in their voyage to find some sort of certainty that's out there. And what they're missing by doing that is not giving anything that they may have believed in a legitimate chance, right? So it's kind of the point you're making that, I'll give you an example. You got Kalanovich, Kalanovich, the analyst from JP Morgan, right?
Right, yeah.
He's the analyst of the year. Everybody goes by every little word that comes out of his mouth. He made one bad call this year, thinking that the market was going to bottom earlier, and instead we're still in the bear market. So legitimately, it's one bad call in an impeccable career, right? I mean, he's a well-known analyst. He's a genius besides, okay? And he, you could see people don't even want to pay attention to him anymore because of that bad call. Like if I'll post anything, a Kalanovich note, I get the trolls that were looking for that same note 6 months ago. Oh yeah, what about his call earlier this year? Where they don't understand, you're missing the big picture here. Okay, he is who he is not because of one bad call. Everyone has a loser in this game. You understand? You're never going to get to the point where you find someone that doesn't share a losing trade with you, right?
Right.
It's mission impossible.
Look
They
at
don't-
Tom Lee's call for last year was absurdly wrong.
Oh, yeah, there were
How,
people who,
right? How popular was he in the bull market? Every time he's at market go higher, people were bowing to his knee, right? Bowing
Yep.
to his knees. And
hey, Jay,
yeah.
Jay, how long did it take before you trusted yourself more than anybody else?
you know, I initially, when I first started in the game, I had that same thing where I was trying to find that certainty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally understand it. But I think it came a little quicker to me because of my family and the gambling background, where I knew losing had to be a part of the equation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I heard, what did Mark Douglas, I was watching a video, he's like, losing is actually just an expense in trading. Like every business
yeah,
has an
there's
expense.
there's no way around it. And kind of like Pete was saying with Ted Williams, you know, in his game, in his career, he batted 300. He lost 7 out of 10 times, and he's still a Hall of Famer and a legend. You understand?
How long did it take you to trust yourself?
Honestly, I really don't know an exact time, but it took years. You know what I mean?
And you still, I trust like with you right now, I trust myself more than anything I read.
Oh yeah, now obviously now I don't trust. You know, I'm the
Right,
only.
so that's the, like, we could say that's a goal for everybody out there,
Oh
right?
yeah, and that eventually comes. But I just see a lot of younger traders that they hop around, you know, in search of that certainty, and you know, you never know, they may have something, they may already have a system or an edge or a philosophy that works.
There's people with talent, right?
Yeah,
There's
and they don't even
inborn
realize it.
talent. For anybody who's watching, we've seen people come in right off the street and make millions that are just
Oh
talented.
yeah, that's the beauty of this game. That's why everybody loves this game.
Yep.
That's right.
There is a perfect natural in trading. They do exist.
Yeah.
I've seen it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And
It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't me. Unfortunately, it wasn't me either.
Me.
But
Peter?
let's
Is
be
it you,
honest.
Peter?
Let's be honest. It's most of the people listening to us. You know, I don't know you personally, but the odds are it's not going to be you either. You know.
Yeah.
Like, what are the stats? You guys have any numbers to back it up? Is it like 8 out of 10 traders fail? Is there any legit number out there? I know.
Yeah,
people
80%.
It's 80%. It is 80%.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which is what you want. You want to go into a place where everybody fails,
again,
because the
otherwise
upside,
it wouldn't be worth it. If
right,
it wouldn't be
and
worth
the
it.
upside's unlimited.
Yeah, exactly.
It's awesome. It's like, yeah, game on, bring it.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of the reasons that 80% fail are the same reasons. You know what I mean? Are the same reasons amongst that 80%, right?
Yeah, I'm most recently convinced that people are trying to work harder, not smarter.
Oh, without a doubt. That's, you know, especially bear market. You know what I mean? You think you battle through it. That's, especially you're young, you think you're tough, right?
Right. Yeah, I could do this. I could get it. Right. It's like no political connection's going to help. Not even your blistering education or your checkbox life is not going to do it.
No.
Not going to do it.
But yeah, again, like you guys said, that's why such a high number of failure in this game. You know, it's just a handful of things that, you know, if you can work on and learn and continue to learn, continue to get better, right? The point you made, kind of like the samurai, you know, you want to really give it your role and build habits out of these things.
Yeah.
If you have that within you to do that, you have a shot. But without it, you're just part of the 80%. You may not be it now, but you will be at some point.
At some point. All right, let's wrap it, you guys.
Oh, is it? What time is it? Oh, it's 5. What time is it now? Oh, 5 o'clock. Is it?
5:06. And I know Peter's got a roll.
Yeah.
Pete, you're muted.
Pete, I don't think you can see.
There you go.
Hello.
All right, well, good. You know.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Jay.
Yeah, same here. I'll see y'all come
Thanks,
on the
Jay.
Wednesday thing too soon.
Okay, great.